thing I did consider very seriously was 4 years ago, very seriously. I ended up endorsing Mitt Romney, and he failed. He choked. Something happened. Yeah? Question? Yeah.
Greatest living president.
Living president, I mean, I really talk about a president who died relatively recently as Ronald Reagan. I was not a big Bush fan. I thought he was not up to par. I mean, people would think I was not a big Bush fan. And I'm not a big fan of his brother, who is weak on amnesty, very weak on immigration, and in favor of common law. Not a big fan. I thought his brother destabilized the Middle East. I thought his brother did a terrible job. Spent $2 trillion in Iraq, and you know what we have now? Nothing. They shouldn't have done it, number one, and after they did it, they should have at least kept the oil. I'm not a big fan of it. No, I would have to go back further than that. I was a big fan, a very big fan of Ronald Reagan, and I knew him. I was a young man, but I knew him.
Of those
well, I don't want to comment because what's the reason to comment? I mean, not a big fan. Okay? Yes. Well, I'm not talking, I don't know anybody else. I mean, you could say Carly, I guess, perhaps. I don't know. I built a tremendous company, a tremendous network. You'll see that because if I do this, I'm going to immediately release the financials, and they're phenomenal. I built a great, great company. Some of the most iconic assets in the world. Whether it's Trump Tower on 57th and 56th and 5th next to Tiffany, or so many buildings in that, or all over the world. Like a lot of buildings I don't even know I own. I took from the Chinese. I did very well against the Chinese. The Bank of America building, one of the great buildings of the world. I own a big, big chunk of that. And that was really versus China. 1290 Avenue of the Americas, largest floor plates, or just about, I think the largest, but just about the largest floor plates in Manhattan. Great location, right on Avenue of the Americas. So you need somebody with thinking, and nobody else like me that I can tell you. Yes. Absolutely. I would absolutely impose tariffs immediately. You can call it tax, you can call it tariffs, you can call it anything you want. Because China is ripping us off and abusing us because we have leaders that don't know what they're doing. And the new trade pact is a disaster because they don't talk about currency manipulation.
But they do also impose tariffs on American nationalities that are producing their product in China.
Anything coming in from China, I would impose a tax. Unless China goes around and stops what they're doing to us. They are making it impossible for our companies to compete. And that's not just China. That's Japan, which just lowered the yen, by the way. And I tell the story. A friend of mine is a big excavator. He just bought Komatsu tractors. He's very unhappy. He called me. He said, I'm very unhappy. Why? I was forced to buy Komatsu tractors. Why? Not because he wanted them. He's always been a Caterpillar guy. I said, why? He said, because Komatsu, what happened to the yen? Japan has cut the yen by so much. They've manipulated their currency so brilliantly that he had no choice but to buy Komatsu tractors. That stuff's not going to happen with me. Not going to happen. I want them to build here. I don't want Ford to spend $2.5 billion on the largest plant in the world, auto plant in the world, in Mexico. What does that do for us? And then they make the parts, trucks, and cars. And they ship it across the border with all the illegals. They all come in one big group. The illegals, the cars, the parts, and the trucks. Everything, boom. Okay? I don't want that. And I will tell you, if I called the head of Ford, and if I said to the head of Ford, we're going to put a 35% tax, one of two things is going to happen. He's going to build it, and we're going to make a lot of money, take care of our people, including Social Security. Or they're going to say, you know what, we're not building it there anymore. We're going to build it in the United States, which is probably what they're going to do. The problem is that politicians are all controlled by the lobbyists and political donors. I don't need any donors. I get a lot of money. I don't need donors. So I'm going to do the right thing. If I do this, which is going to be such a surprise to a lot of people, I'm going to do the right thing. Okay?
The South Carolina House has passed a bill allowing concealed weapons without permit. There's constitutional rights, of course. There's also public safety.
Well, I'm a big Second Amendment person, so I am a big second, and I'm very much in line with South Carolina, the people of South Carolina, and they obviously want it. So I stand there. I am a very big Second Amendment, pro-Second Amendment.
There's no training needed.
Hey, they know what they're doing. Look at Chicago. Chicago has the toughest gun laws in the United States, maybe in the world, but in the United States. Look what's happening in Chicago. You tell me. Chicago is a disaster, and it's got the toughest gun laws anywhere. And people are being shot by the dozens a week. So, you know, works both ways. Yes, sir.
You've been very vocal about your opposition to the TPP. If this does wind up getting passed in 2016, would you want a Republican candidate, if it's you or someone else, to be fully against it or go work
Well,
towards
I'd be
repealing
against it for a couple of reasons. Number one, if I run, I'd really want to win.
Yeah.
And if I win, who's going to be better at negotiating an agreement than me? Number one. And I'd want the agreement to be with individual countries. I don't want 11 countries, 9 countries, whatever they end up ultimately choosing. Because as I said inside, it's going to be favored nations. The bad ones are going to be able to get what the good ones deserve. I want to do individual, separate agreements with individual. I believe in free trade, but it has to be smart trade. I'm a free trade person. But we have very dumb people representing us, or people controlled by money. And I don't know if you saw that this just came out. In fact, I saw it with your show. This just came out last week. One of the largest deficits for goods and services, $51 billion a month ago. 51 deficit, 51 foreign trade. Goods and services, $51 billion. We can't do that. And the only reason that's there is because we have people that negotiate bad deals. When I bring up the Bergdahl deals, I call them the 5-for-1 president. Our trade deals are just as bad as that. Our nuclear deals, relatively speaking, are just as bad as that. We don't make good deals anymore. And I started off by saying, when was the last time you saw us win it? We don't win it anymore. From Russia to China to Japan to Mexico, we don't win it. Hello, David.
I haven't heard you speak a lot about religious liberty. Have you ever attended a gay wedding?
Yes.
When was the last time you went to it?
About a week ago. Okay. Yes. No, he should have done these things before he lost the election. No, he should have, you know what, he should have promoted himself better. Instead of going into a cabinet closing the door a month before the election. I have no interest in it. I'm very disappointed in Mitt Romney. He gave us 4 more years of Obama. So if he wants to box Evander, Evander's a good friend of mine. I mean, Evander's fought for me on numerous occasions. Believe me, you know, I know it's just fun. But if it weren't fun, Evander, the real deal Holyfield, one punch, it's all over. But we all know that, okay? And it's fun. It's a charity. I've done many charities where they have professional boxers against, you know, guys like Mitt. Mitt should have thought about this stuff 4 years ago. Something happened. And I'll give Obama a lot of credit. Before the election, he went on all the shows. He was on Jay Leno, he was on Letterman, he was on all of them. And I'd call Mitt's people, why aren't you on these shows? You know, he was on the show. So he should have thought about this before. Yeah. I know Tom Brady very well. He's a personal friend of mine. He's an honorable guy. He's a very honest guy. And absolutely, I do not think he should be suspended. And frankly, and I said it yesterday, he could have been throwing a soccer ball and he would have won. And he should not be suspended. Absolutely. And frankly, the report, if you had that in a jury, no jury could convict based on that report. Because they have no idea. That was the weirdest statement I've ever heard. Tom Brady is a great player and he's a great champion. That's why I like him as my partner in golf, okay? It's a great, and if he threw a soccer ball, he would have won that game, okay? Yes.
Your story business career, go back.
You know, it's a question, I do get that question, and I probably could think of some things, but you know, it's very interesting. I've been able to make a tremendous amount of money, but I've also been able to take bad deals and make them good deals. I have a great habit of being able to do that. Very few people can do that. In other words, you build an 80-story building and the market collapses when you're on the 47th floor. I've been able to make them good deals. So, generally speaking, I mean, I've been able to take bad deals and make them great. They start off being good, the world collapses. That's when you find if somebody has it. I like to learn from experience. You know, the one thing you have to say, you have to learn. If you make a mistake somewhere, you have to learn so it doesn't happen again. And you have to be able to make the kind of mistake that you can turn around and make it an asset. Okay? Yes, ma'am. Oh, it's total influence. Lobbyists and donors, 100%.
But would you support making financial form?
I don't know. Look. I've been dealing with politicians all my life. I say it outside. It's part of what I say. They're all talk, they're no action. They're never getting you to the promised land. And if they did, a lobbyist would confront them and say, what are you doing? What are you doing? You're hurting me, my client, and they won't. They'll never get you. They'll never make this country great. A politician will never make this country great. Because they're controlled by lobbyists and people that give campaign contributions. And I don't mean like 95, pretty much 100%. And you know that, but you're not allowed to say that. I can't hear you. I think it's terrible, and I think the police have been horribly mistreated. I think the police, the first night, should have been allowed to stop the destruction of the city. I think the mayor did a horrible job, and I think your state's attorney should be ashamed of herself. And frankly, you know, the government put $1.8 billion into Baltimore. What we need is jobs. You need leadership. We don't have any leadership. They're great people in Baltimore. I know many people in Baltimore. I have friends in Baltimore. But I will say this, the police were, that first night, they destroyed the city in one night. They destroyed it. That city will take many, many years to come back. And the federal government will end up footing the bill. The police have not been treated properly in Baltimore. And frankly, you have some great people, and you have great people in Baltimore, but we need jobs. We don't have jobs. And I've said, the best social program is a job. It's the best social program. Okay, any other questions? Yes, ma'am. Well, you have to make the tax code simple. You can do flat tax, fair tax, you can do what we have now, but it's got to be simplified. You have many different concepts, all of which work, but the biggest word is simplification. It has to be simple. Too complicated, too many lawyers. And part of the problem is I pay millions of dollars a year for lawyers doing returns. Millions. Part of the problem is you have a group of lawyers, it's a lobbyist group. They don't want it simplified because then guys like me don't have to hire them. So everything we have in this country is about politicians and lobbyists. The lawyers have a tremendous lobby. They don't want to see, when I say lawyers, the lawyers, the H&R Blocks, all these people, they don't want to see it simple. Because if it's simplified, they don't have any business. Okay? Thank you. Well, I try and pay as low as possible. Okay? I'm very proud of it. I pay as little as possible. You know why? Because I'm a private person, I have a family, and I have many employees. And I am, you know, unlike other people that say, oh, I pay tax, but I try and pay. Now, I give away lots of land, I give away lots of things, you're entitled to deductions, you can make the case that that's a big asset, and I pay tax. I don't know what my rate is, but I certainly try and pay as little as possible. And one of the reasons I want to pay as little as possible is because we have incompetent politicians that throw our money down the drain. Okay, any other questions? Yes, ma'am.
What would your thoughts be to improve the immigration?
I don't hear you.
What would you do to fix illegal immigration over the southern border?
You'd stop it. You stop it. Walls and guards, and it would stop really quickly. You could stop that, and you tell Mexico, which by the way lives off us, it's stopping as of now. Go ahead.
If you decide to run, how do you think your style will translate in an important primary segment?
Well, KC won't say it, and a lot of the people will say it, and I got 7 standing ovations. When I walked out, I was told by the head of this whole deal that not one other person got one. So I don't know, how's it going to play? I get the biggest crowds, I get the biggest ovations. I'm the most successful person that's ever run for this office. How it plays, I don't know. I've always said it's very hard for a very successful person to to be in politics, and especially at the presidential level. We'll see. We'll see what happens. Okay? Thank you, everyone. Thank you. Thank you.